When we hear the term garden club, unless we have first-hand knowledge of the subject, our minds typically go to something along the lines of this. Like the scenes depicted in Paramount's Why Women Kill, Rita and the Garden Club ladies. Women with fancy hats and polyester suit dresses, sitting around with tea and crumpets, not talking about gardens very much. They have landscapers at home that are maintaining their gardens. But in reality, it looks a lot more like this. A bunch of stay-at-home moms at a rented space, at a local women's club or, the local school cafeteria, where someone's telling them that plastic is bad. Then sometimes garden club friends become foes. But there isn't murder on the horizon like in the Paramount series. No, we end up in the Allegan County Magistrate Court, fighting over landscape design.
All right, so this is file 2302607, DeVries versus Stiegel. Both parties are present. So this is what we call small claims. In other words, well, just give me 1 second to figure out who this is I got on the phone. All right, on the telephone, what's your name, please?
Oliver
This is Shelly
Johnson.
DeVries.
No, on the telephone, what's your name, please?
Shelly
Oliver
DeVries.
Johnson.
Miss DeVries, you're not on a telephone. Please stop. On the telephone ending in 7152, what's your name?
Oliver Johnson.
Okay, sir, there's no service on your case. So without service, we already took it off docket for today. You need to call the clerk's office and figure out what to do next.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, so we are back on this matter. This is a small claims case. In other words, you're asking for this to be resolved without the use of attorneys and without anyone requesting a jury trial, for this to be resolved right here in front of me. So first things first, that the parties are ready to forego their rights to counsel and or jury. I'm going to swear you in. If you could raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you give here today would be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I do.
All right. I don't have much information here, just on the affidavit and claim. This is for services requested. Is it already services rendered?
No, the services were not rendered. Yes, I'm sorry, the services were rendered, but she has not paid.
All right. So then, Ms. Williams, let me ask you, do you agree that there is in fact monies owed to plaintiff, and it's more about how and when you're going to be able to pay that? Or are you here contesting that you owe money?
I'm contesting that I owe money, and I did email my exhibits to the court, and they did say that they were received. I believe the date was December.
So I need to start with the plaintiff here. So Ms. DeVries, why don't you tell me in your own words what it is we're here for?
Okay, when I moved to South Haven about 3 years ago, I began attending the South Haven Garden Club, where I met Ms. Stiegel. As I became more and more active in the club, I volunteered my own yard garden for the yearly garden walk tour. After seeing my yard at the walk, Ms. Stiegel approached me about designing a plan for her yard. I believe I visited her property 4 times, measuring and noting soil types, the sun and shade zones, etc. I then spent extra time defining each plant in the design I drew out for her. I priced out the plants and totaled the estimate. When designing landscapes for homeowners, I typically include my design fee in the cost of the plants. I presented the design plan to her at her house, walking the yard, looking at where each plant would go. She wanted to think about it. I left the design and plant list with her so she could look it over. That was the last I saw of my plan. I reached out to her several times to see if she was ready to commit to the anyway, and she is, as far as I know.
All right.
So basically, she requested my service, I supplied the service, and she's refused to pay for the service.
And your response to that, Ms. Stiegel?
My response? Yes. I met Ms. DeVries at a garden club meeting for the first time after my home was built, which was in April of 2023. So I haven't known her for 3 years, and she's no longer a member of our garden club. She did approach me with her business card when she heard me talking to another member that I was looking for a landscaper. I did contact her. When I met with her, as I stated in my exhibits, I found out that she was a landscape designer, and I was looking for a landscaper to grade, seed, and mulch my property. So the scope of work was not what she could do, and she informed me she didn't have the equipment for that, and that she was a one-person landscape designer. So I told her, well, I'm not ready for that because my property is pure sand. The home was just finished construction. She continued to contact me. We did talk about plants. She asked me what kind of plants I liked. And so in a discussion with a, garden club member, I talked to her about it, but I never hired her. She did continue to contact me. She was very persistent, and I continued to remind her that I'm not ready for landscape design. I need somebody to grade, seed, and mulch my property. So since that was not the scope of work that she could do, I didn't hire her. That was on July, it was in the middle of July. So July 22nd, I did hire a landscaper who emailed me a quote that I accepted in writing, that they executed in August, and they've been paid in full in the amount of $4,500 and change. So
All
I
right,
don't
let
know.
me stop you there.
Yeah.
Ms. DeVries, do you have, I have everything that Ms. Stiegel's talking about. I have nothing, you don't have any paperwork that you guys, you had a proposal or any contract or agreement?
No, I'm sorry. I'm not agreeing totally with her recollection of of our
Okay, ma'am,
conversations.
just if you could just directly answer my question. Do you have
Yes,
anything, a written proposal that was accepted, a contract, an invoice, anything like that?
Yes, I believe I included that with my paperwork originally. This has been, an ongoing thing with the court system. I have it right here in front of me. It's dated July 16, proposal for landscaping, plants, trees, delivery, installation. And on the bottom, I put design included with a plant purchase.
Okay, ma'am, you did not submit that to court.
I did at one point. I'm sorry. I can take a picture of it right now and send it over if that helps.
Okay, I do see this for $1,996.
Correct. That was for doing the entire job. Buying the plants, buying the trees, and that's where I recover my design fee is from me taking care of that part of it.
Okay, but this job was never followed through on, correct?
Correct. She requested my service. I supplied the service, but she decided, I guess at some point, she never told me that she did not want to do it. She just never
But ma'am,
responded.
this is a proposal for landscaping.
Correct. And
So
that's
then
what
we
I'm
would have acceptance, right?
Yes.
And so you went out and met with her at her property?
Yes.
Okay. And then you submitted this design,
Correct.
which I don't see.
I gave it to her. She has it. That was my mistake that I left it with her, figuring that we were going to be proceeding and she wanted to look it over.
Okay. And what, Ms. Stiegel, what you proceeded with No Spin Services, is that Ms. DeVries' design?
No, sir. As I mentioned, I explained to her that the scope of work was not landscape design. So my misunderstanding must have been that she could do grading, seeding, and mulching, because that's what I needed. So when we met, as soon as she told me that's not what she does, I said, well, I'm not ready for flowers and plants. I need this property to go from sand to be graded, seeded, and mulched. And we left it at that. And I told her, I'm not ready, but she continued to contact me many times via text and phone. And I kept saying, yeah, I told you already, I'm not ready for this. I just can't do it. The yard is sand. So
Okay, but I just want to be clear that this acceptance that you did want to go forward here that is with No Spin, that's not affiliated with Miss DeVries at all.
It is not, Your Honor.
All right, so you're just showing that you did in fact go forward with some landscaping, you paid them, that has nothing to do with Miss DeVries.
It has nothing to do with her, but I paid for what I was looking for, as I explained to her.
Yes, but here's what I'm asking you. Did you accept from Miss DeVries an actual, let's call it a blueprint, I don't know what else to call it, a design for what to do on your property?
I did not accept that from her. She
I
contacted
left it
me.
at her house.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
Do you physically have it, Miss DeGo?
I do not.
All right, here's what I would need then, right? Because this is pretty straightforward. You guys are sort of two ships passing in the night.
Mm-hmm.
When you're telling me all these times that, you know, she was very persistent and you would respond to her that this isn't really what you're looking for, and are you talking about oral conversations on the phone or texts?
Oral conversations on the phone, because she did call me one last time when I repeated to her, I do not want landscape design. She contacted me via phone and said that she was in the neighborhood. So what she is referring to, I will explain to you if I may.
Go ahead.
She contacted me via phone and said, I'm outside of your house. Can I stop by? And I said, okay, but I didn't know what she was stopping by for. She walked in. She had 2 pieces of paper that were taped together, that were photocopied, that were completely illegible. So I didn't even know what she was handing me. She handed it to me and I said, what is this? As I explained in my exhibit. She said, well, I put down some flowers and plants for you to see what you think. And that's exactly what she said to me. And then I replied, I told you I'm not ready for landscape design.
Okay.
My yard is.
And you don't have this any longer?
No, sir. At the time,
all right, because that's what I would need to see, because essentially what I would be doing is deciding whether or not that's the time and energy and work put in. Ms. DeVries, you didn't keep a copy of your own design you'd give to a client?
No, that was definitely my mistake. I am a small business person on my own, and I've done this for many, many other people's done the design, and I've never run into any kind of issues like this before. But I learned now.
Essentially, here's what I have to do, because you guys are just sort of, you have different recollections of the same interactions, but you don't necessarily have what sometimes, you know, in our modern world makes my job a lot easier, texts going back and forth. So you guys did a lot of personal talking or talking on the phone, which what we're sitting on now is, you know, your recollection or your understanding of what that conversation was, you know, plaintiff versus defendant. So here's the thing. In other words, for me to essentially award you these damages, I would just need to see that there was literally something done that would, you know, take up the time and energy and be something you'd pay somebody for, landscape design, that was actually transferred from you to Ms. Stegall. Ms. Stegall saying what it was not something you'd pay $350 for. And what you're saying for what Ms. DeVries is, well, of course, it's that, you know, I do this all the time, and that's a landscape design. It took me time. I had to go out there and take in the lay of the land and come up with the design. But when we have two parties, one is essentially a business, the other one a homeowner, that onus is always going to be the burden of proof more so on the business than it's going to be on the homeowner. What I find very sort of strange about this case is that you would have delivered, let's call it the original, you know, master blueprint. There's no copy of it. There's nothing for me to look at to judge essentially, you know, whether or not I think that's worth the $350. So at this point, I don't have physical work that was done, you know, in terms of you didn't actually do any landscaping, right? What you're charging for out of that invoice, because all those plants and flowers and stuff didn't actually come to fruition. The only thing that came to fruition is your plan.
And may I say, I do have the one page paper I do have is where I measured her whole property around her house. I have the copy of that, all my dimensions. I have notes on it of the plants that she told me that she liked. That I do have that piece of paper, but it's not a true blueprint. It's not the plant, the
Well,
designing
but
that I
the
actually
problem
did.
is that's Miss Stiegel agrees that you guys had these preliminary discussions, but once she realized you're not actually, you know, in the business of, you know, grading the property and seeding the grass and everything, she went to a different vendor who could perform all those services. And you're saying, well, I went forward with my understanding of that I was going to be at least do this design, and then once it was okayed, then we go to a landscaper. But what I'm telling you is, in front of me, what I have to base my decision on, I would always sort of, and like you even said it yourself, I think you kind of realize where we're going here, that this is sort of a mistake that you made from, I'm calling you a business here point of view, that you wouldn't hand out your original intellectual property without copies of it, because then we find ourselves in the place where we're at right now, where you're hearing me saying, all this is to me right now is an ethereal conversation and not actually a sort of a hardwired thing I can assess damages for. And so at this point, I would not award damages based upon what I have in front of me. What I have is essentially a miscommunication between the two of you, but without any sort of work product actually produced that I can confirm that I would credit as being worth the $350. So this is what I will explain to you. In not awarding damages, we're essentially done with the small claims. But because we did have a small claims case, either party, although I'm not sure why Ms. Segal would want to contest my finding here, but either party, and so I'm paying attention to you, Ms. DeVries, can say, I don't agree with what just happened there. I wish for this to go back to general civil in front of the district court judges. You do have a right to appeal this finding, but you must do two things. First is you must ask for that within 7 days of today's date. That window of opportunity closes. And two, you must come in into court because you have to formally ask for that in writing. Do you understand your rights on appeal, both parties?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, the court is in the court in Allegan is where I here.
Yes. And you will get copies of my judgment in the mail. I wouldn't wait for that because, like I said, the clock is ticking on accepting this finding. But if parties accept this finding, there's nothing further to do because I did not order the transfer of any monies. All right. And so with that, I can go ahead and release parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.